Welcome back to FNN News, FNN News Network, and I am your host, Sibel. In news on the OLA commands have reported Prosperity Party forces defeated on all fronts, despite reports of increased deployments of Eritrean and Amhara troops to Oromia. Prosperity Party forces were reportedly unable to regain any of the territory currently under the control of the OLA. The TDF has also re-entered the Afar region as it pushes back against Prosperity Party affiliated forces, indicating that the TDF will most likely be able to re-enter Wallo again soon. Meanwhile, a dispute broke out after General Abdou Tadesse, the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Ethiopian Defense Forces, said in an interview with state media source Fana Broadcasting Corporation that Tigray is part of Ethiopia, and he also vowed to eliminate the TPLF, the Kimant, and the OLA, which he referred to by the government term Shani. We'll show a clip here from the interview, and what he says here in this clip that we'll put up is, quote, finishing chapter 1 literally means there is chapter 2, but Mekelle, Tigray is the territory of Ethiopia. No one will stop us. We will enter. We will destroy the enemy. There is nothing controversial about it. So we'll put that clip up from that interview now.
ለምንድነው የቆምነው የሚለው በጣም ጥሩ ጥያቄ ነው። አሁን እንደ አተረጓጎም ሊሆን ይችላል። ግን ትክክለኛው ነገር ምንድነው? ለምን ቆምን የሚለው ለምሳሌ ሲገለጽ ምዕራፍ 1ን ጨርሰናል ነው የሚለው። ስለዚህ ምዕራፍ 1ን ጨርሰናል ማለት ቃል በቃል ምዕራፍ 2 አለ ማለት ነው ነው። መቀሌ ግን እና ትግራይ ግን የኢትዮጵያ ግዛት ነው። ማንም እኛን አያቆመንም። እንገባለን፣ ጠላት እናጠፋለን። ይሄ ምንም የሚያሻማ ነገር የለም። የኢትዮጵያ ሕዝብም እንዳለቀ አድርጎ አይደለም ራሱ መውሰድ ያለበት። አላለቀም። በዚህ አውራማ ሸኔ ነኝ፣ በዚህ እንደዚህ ቅማንት ነኝ፣ በዚህ ምናምን ነኝ የሚባል ነገር አይሰራም ከዚህ በኋላ። የጊዜ ጉዳይ ነው። አንድ ትልቅ ጉዳይ ስላለን ጥላ ስላለን ነው። ይሄ የጊዜ ጉዳይ ነው። መጥፋት አለበት። መጥፋት ማለት ምን ማለት ነው? ይሄ ትጥቅ አንስቶ በአገር ውስጥ መዋጋት የአንደኛው ክፍለ ዘመን ስለ
So in response to that interview with General Tadesse, the OLA commander stationed in central Oromia said that the EDF is losing the war and that they should come to the battlefield to see the reality of things. And this is not the first time that General Tadesse has come under fire for advocating for violence against both Tigrayans and Oromos. Back in October, in an interview with Globe News Net, Gebre Meskel Kasa, who is the former cabinet secretary and chief of staff for the president of Prime Minister Abiy's appointed interim government in Tigray, said that General Tadesse was among a number of Amhara commanders in government who had mocked the suffering of Tigrayans while actively impeding access to humanitarian aid for peoples affected by the war, and that he had also worked to maintain the blockade that prevents essential supplies and humanitarian aid from entering that northern region. In other news, World Vision and USAID have launched a 5-year and $309 million joint project in both the Oromia and Amhara regions to promote food security as well as other benefits to the resident there. We'll put up some pictures from the launch event here in Finfinne. The program was announced on Tuesday at this event. It promises to benefit more than 400,000 people. $206 million, or more than 10 billion birrs of the project's funding, will come from USAID Ethiopia and the Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance. And according to the Ethiopia PR Observer, an estimated 1.3 million people could benefit from this program, which includes job creation, promotion of farming business, and also new healthcare access initiatives. Sintayehu Demisi, who is the Food Security Coordination Director of the Ministry of Agriculture, said at this event that, quote, the program is aligned with the objectives of the Rural Productive Safety Net program, which focuses its efforts to improve the livelihoods of the poor and vulnerable people of Ethiopia. Therefore, for the effective implementation of the program, it's very crucial to have strong collaboration between the government, implementing partners, and other stakeholders. So, of course, it remains to be seen the effectiveness of that program, considering the continued drought conditions experienced by many Oromos, as well as very high rates of inflation. In other news on Oromia, Jawar Mohammed, as well as other prominent political leaders, were, of course, recently released from prison, as reported by FNN News. And here we now have footage of them gathering with the community following their release. So we'll show some of that footage of Jawar Mohammed returning home from imprisonment.
Tokkummaanii humna tokkummaa yaa ilmaanii Oromoo tokkummaa tokkummaanii humna tokkummaa. Baratuu darbuu diide ofii gungumaa deema baranoo barroo maali baroomaan darba amma yoomitti nu darba fardatoo garbuu liide.
And of course, the caveat here being that multiple political prisoners still remain under arrest, some of whom who have been essentially acquitted of whatever charges they were originally charged with. In other news, Ethiopia's government has just approved the lifting of the state of emergency that was put in place on November 2nd and that saw a wave of mass deportations sweep across the country, targeting both Tigrayans and Oromos. According to a government statement, quote, now we have reached a stage where threats can be neutralized through regular law enforcement mechanisms. And this comes after the government announced over the weekend, of course, that it would enter Mekelle, the capital of Tigray, and eliminate opposition forces. Meanwhile, the International Committee of the Red Cross said that it was able to make its first delivery of medical supplies into Mekelle since September 2021, even as the government maintains a blockade of supplies, a blockade that prevents supplies of food and essential medicine into the region. Here's a tweet up from the ICRC saying that life-saving medical supplies have finally been able to be successfully delivered into the war-torn region of Mekelle and Tigray. However, 27 other aid trucks headed from Afar to Mekelle with 800 tons of food have been stuck for several days now at a checkpoint in the town of Serdo, that is according to the World Food Program. And while government forces blamed the delay on an attack by the TPLF spokesperson Getachew Reda had a contradicting take on Twitter. He says here that the regional Afar government was in fact responsible for halting the truck's progress. And he continues here, the excuse given was that the regional government didn't approve of the convoy and there was fighting in Abala Afar. He alleges here that the conflict that was happening in Abala was in fact launched by government affiliated forces, the Afar forces, and their Eritrean partners. In other news, WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus was nominated for a second term in his position, despite accusations from an Ethiopian ambassador that he was supporting forces hostile to the government. The government has requested that Dr. Tedros, who is Tigrayan himself, be investigated for his ties to the TPLF. But at a hybrid meeting of the WHO that recently occurred in Geneva, that request was in fact struck down upon the orders of Executive Board Chair Patrick Ameth. And Ameth also cut off Ethiopia's ambassador, Zenebe Kebede Korcho, when he went on to begin a speech in which he alleged that Dr. Tedros was, quote, using his office to advance his personal political interest at the expense of the interests of Ethiopia. And the executive board chair, Patrick Ameth, said that, quote, further discussion of the matter is not germane and is therefore out of order under the relevant rules of the procedure. So in response to that apparent strike down of any attempt to investigate Dr. Tedros over accusations of bias towards the TPLF or Tigray in general, the Ethiopian government actually released a statement commenting upon that. We'll put up that statement here. Here it accuses Dr. Tedros essentially of choosing his political affiliation to the TPLF over his country. It says here, quote, in the process, he betrayed his oath of office as a director general of the WHO, and he abused his office and the international nature of the director general to advance the TPLF's propaganda. There have been no connections between Dr. Tedros and the TPLF that have been identified whatsoever. And in other news, a bombshell report out recently from Politico found that the Ethiopian government used a Turkish drone to carry out the airstrike on Dedebit in Tigray on January 7th that killed 58 people, as previously reported on by FNN News. So these images that you're looking at now were given to the Dutch non-governmental organization PAX, and Amnesty International by humanitarian aid workers. They are photos of the bomb shards that were used in that strike on Dedebit. And these photos were subsequently analyzed, and those organizations concluded that the weapon that was used was an MAML bomb, and that it was fitted to the Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2 drone. And the project leader of the humanitarian disarmament at PAX, Wim Zwijnenberg, who helped to analyze the photographs, told Politico, this is a direct quote, because this is technology that requires a lot of maintenance and piloting, Turkey could be made directly responsible if there is a consistent pattern of drone strikes used against civilians and Turkish crew is on the ground doing maintenance on the drones. So, potential serious implications in the future if many of these airstrikes that have been carried out by the Ethiopian government are discovered to have been weaponized essentially by Turkish weapons, and if the Ethiopian government is buying those weapons to supply those airstrikes from other countries. Maybe there's the potential for them to be held accountable for those weapon sales. And that does it for today. Going forward, we'll continue to update you on the conflict in Ethiopia, more Oromo issues, and the war in Tigray. Thanks again for watching FNN News, Finfine News Network, and I am your host, Sibel.